Hey everyone, Derp here. Welcome back. Today I've got some big news to share about where we're headed and how things are going to be changing around here. There have been a lot of requests for more content on legal issues and Dark and Darker specific content, but honestly, I feel like we need to go in a new direction. A new direction that I hope has a much bigger impact on the gaming community as a whole. I know it sounds like a big shift, and trust me, it is, but hear me out because I think you'll like where we're headed. But before I do that, but before we get into the main topic, there is one thing that I kind of have to announce. I'm excited to announce that we have our first sponsor. I know that I haven't had any sponsors or really much of anything to kind of bring income into the channel, and I liked it that way, other than like consumer support, because that makes me the only people I'm beholden to is you. But in order to achieve what I want to achieve, we need more sources of funding. And we need to kind of monetize the channel a little bit more, which means I will be making more content, but there is things like sponsorships and stuff we can do. But I want to do this in a meaningful and impactful way. So I am happy to announce that we have our first sponsor. And while I do get paid when you use any like affiliate link or anything that I post for my sponsorships, with this one specifically, I get 10% or more of every sale made using my link or code, but that money isn't going into my pocket. It's not going to make me rich. I am not rich. I don't plan on getting rich from YouTube. That's not what I want to do. That's not my career path. I've never really wanted to be a YouTuber. What I want to be is helpful to the people in this community and the niche that we serve, right? And the niche that we enjoy, which is video games. So I get paid 10% or more of every sale using my code or link. But yeah, that money isn't going into my pocket. It's going directly into funding the game studio I'm starting and our first game. The sponsor and I talked. They like what we were doing, and this is how they can help support us and help make our dreams come true, while still also making some money from them for themselves. With that said, I don't take partnerships or sponsorships lightly. If I'm going to promote something, it's going to be something I use and can genuinely recommend. And that's kind of why I've been radio silent for the past month, toying with this idea of where the channel's going to go, what we're going to do, and I've been actually checking out the stuff I'm sponsoring. And I've been vetting this product and the company behind it for about a month. So I wanted to make absolutely sure it meets the standards that I personally demand from products that I use, as I would never want to recommend a product that I wouldn't use myself. Um, and when I look at products and think if I can recommend them to other people or if I would, consider them on to sponsor the channel, I check for three things in particular: functionality, price, and quality. But yeah, needless to say, I'm really picky about what I endorse and what products I promote and services I promote, as I don't want to shill a product or service to viewers that I wouldn't use myself. If I'm talking about a product or service here, you can trust that I actually believe in it and I use it or have used it myself in the past, which is why I can now say that I am actually extremely happy to have a partner in Fume. These guys, yeah. So Fume reached out to me a little over a month ago, saying they like the channel, even though I'm small. They like the content. They think I have promise. Blah 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 blah. We want to sponsor you. And I had looked at Fume before and thought it was kind of gimmicky and didn't really expect it to work or taste good or anything. So when they reached out to me, I actually kind of laughed and was like, "Hey, um, I really don't think your product is anything special." But I was happily wrong. Uh, they reached out to me, we talked, and they said, just give it a try. We'll send it out to you. I got it for free. I got a pack for free. And they said, if you like it, let us know and we will sponsor the channel. So they're now an affiliate and they have a chance to become full-time sponsors, which means like basically a monthly stipend to give them sponsored ad space, which is possible and would be helpful for the channel. They liked what I was doing with the channel. They saw I had some bad habits. I can't really name those bad habits, not going to. But they saw that I had one bad habit specifically. We got to talking about the channel, what I was doing, if I was interested in partnerships, and what the future of the channel was. After a short discussion, they were on board with pretty much everything that we were doing, what I wanted to do, and so was I. I mean, I was getting a product that I was already interested in for free to test out and possibly help fund this channel and my upcoming game studio and game. So we decided to work together if contingent on if I actually like their product. But why Fume of all people? It's a habit and like fidget toy, right? To start off with, Fume isn't related to video games in any way. So there's no real chance of a conflict of interest. I can promote them without having to worry about them possibly being kind of like a competition in the gaming industry later. There's just no possibility of a conflict of interest with somebody so far removed from the gaming genre. And it is a good opportunity for me. It's a good opportunity for the channel to bring in some money for the studio and for the game. And because, I'm going to be honest, a lot of people who play video games a lot have some bad habits. And, this product is designed to help break bad habits. It's a natural non-medical inhaler device that is purposefully built to help you break bad habits and practice mindful breathing. There's no smoke, no vapor, no harmful chemicals, nothing. It's just literally a metal tube with a cartridge that pulls in and out. So here's the cartridge. You literally just put it in there, slide the cover over it, and then there's holes at the end, and you can adjust that to add more air or less air. It's super simple. No batteries, no nothing. It's literally just essential oils on a weird cotton-like cartridge. But it works, and it works very well. So it uses essential oil infused cores to deliver great flavors and aromas. It's supposed to be a tool for anyone trying to build better habits or replace unhealthy ones, which is exactly what I was looking for. There was one bad habit that I had that I wanted to break for a long time, and Fume helped me achieve that basically immediately, kind of accidentally. I ran out of one thing, and this was sitting there on my desk, and I was like, you know what? Now I could get up and go to the store and just continue on with my bad habit, or I could just not get up and go to the store and try this thing out to see if it actually works. And to my surprise and disbelief, it actually did. And if it hadn't, I wouldn't be talking about it right now or recommending it. I've been testing it for about a month now, and what really stood out to me was the quality. This thing is honestly one of the sturdiest and most well-engineered products that I've used in a long time. Like, it's heavy. As a good example, here's a Stanley style mug, and this thing is almost as heavy as this. Yeah, it's heavy. It's well constructed. The metal on it is all perfectly welded. Everything is clean, rounded off. Like, they took a lot of care into the design and build quality of this. I'm impressed. It's literally one of the most well-engineered products I've used in a long time. The construction is solid. The flavors are all natural, and the cores, each of the ones that I've tried so far, taste pretty decent. And most of all, it's super easy to use. You literally just... That's it. If you want less air, you twist it. That's literally the entire functionality. But yeah, most of all, it's just a refreshing alternative that helps me kind of stay mindful of what I'm putting in my body throughout the day and remembering to breathe. And, it's kind of a replacement for one of my bad habits. There's no nicotine, there's no anything of the sort. In here, there's no harmful anything. So it's just kind of an all-around good. It's a habit that's not dangerous, and it actually, surprisingly enough, my concern was that it was going to be extremely expensive up front and extremely expensive to maintain, but it's not. The upfront cost is pretty hefty for what it is, but in the long run, it's going to save you a lot more money than it costs. Uh, but yeah, my only real complaint about it is the upfront cost and how long the cores actually last. So like one of these cores, so this is where all the flavor comes from, and one of these cores lasts, it says on the package like 3 days. Realistically, it's like 2 to maybe 3, and then the flavor starts becoming kind of stale and gross. So you can burn through these. You're going to use probably, 10 cores, 10 to 15 cores a month. And I think each pack of 3 is about $5. Um, but the tool itself, the starter pack is like anywhere from $80 to $100 or $110. But that gives you packs, it gives you the fume itself, and a lot of other stuff. But yeah, the upfront cost is a little steep, especially for people already spending a ton of money on bad habits. So you're kind of compounding it. If you don't actually use this to replace bad habits, you're just forming another expensive habit, because this is in itself a habit forming thing. It's purposely designed to form a habit, but one that's not going to hurt you. It's like a fidget spinner that you breathe through. But if you do get it, it will pay for itself over time. My main concern with Fume, and this is something I would kind of like to reiterate to them and to everybody else, is that it is just another habit that can get kind of costly. How much it adds to your day-to-day life is up to each individual person. So for me, remembering to stop and kind of take a breath, and then when I do so, I use this. I usually either the mint, the citrus, or the black pepper, and I just take a big breath through it, and it tastes delicious, and it helps me remember to kind of take a break. And the clickiness is awesome. But yeah, I mean, personally, I'm going to use this for a long time. It's already replaced some habits, and I can easily recommend this to pretty much anybody who wants to replace some habits with healthier ones that aren't going to hurt you. And some habits that it replaces are way more expensive in the long run than what this is. But yeah, if you want one of these and you want to help support the channel, go to Fume or tryfume.com/Derp Wigglies. I'll put the link in the description. They are paying me to say that, but I do genuinely like this product, and I wouldn't have taken them on as a sponsor if I didn't. Yeah, go to tryfume.com/Derp Wigglies to get your starter pack. I recommend the original core bundle or the citrus cores. But if you want to try them all, there is a small savings when buying the complete pack. But yeah, enough about Fume. I'll do a full review about them in a different video. So right now they're my only sponsor, so I'm gonna probably do some really much shorter ads for them in the future. But let's get on to what's changing about the channel. So what's changing? I'm shifting the channel's focus to something that I'm truly passionate about. I am passionate about the law and legal issues, and I am still super passionate about Dark and Darker. I don't play it nearly as much because of other things that I've been working on. But my passion really is, and this is a much bigger topic. What I find enjoyable and fun, and what I actually like doing, is helping people. I've helped people start small businesses. I've been managing businesses for like basically my entire life. And I've been in some kind of service related field or field that helps people for the most part my entire life. And that's kind of what I'm passionate about. I want to help people, and entertaining people is helping people. And let's be honest, law drama is very entertaining, but that's not really what I'm passionate about. There's the reason why I didn't become a lawyer. So I'm shifting the channel's focus to something that I am truly passionate about, and that's helping protect you, the consumer, in the video game space. There's a lot of things going on in the video gaming world, and sometimes important issues slip through the cracks, and a lot of the times those issues could be something that is negatively impacting you as the consumer. And these things are often hidden in fine print and are industry-wide problems. There's labor issues and tax issues, and it may not sound sexy and interesting, but it helps. There's things to look out for as a consumer, And I think all of us in the video gaming community are kind of sick of being mistreated. So rather than just bitching about it, I actually want to do what I can to help change it. And that's by modifying my content and my content scheduling and just kind of looking for these issues that aren't being talked about that are negatively in fact impacting the video game industry. And I also want to highlight positive things that are happening that aren't being talked about enough either. Um, because you can't just have the negative, you have to expose the positive, otherwise, nobody's going to do positive things, right? A lot of people, even if they want to do good, won't do good because there's a lack of recognition and they feel like they're not being valued. So it's super important to highlight the things that are going on that we actually approve of while also criticizing the negative. Um, and one of my biggest issues is the workers. My biggest issues are the workers and the consumers. And a huge part of protecting the consumers, for me personally, is an issue that kind of hits home, and that's accessibility options. There's a huge lack of accessibility options in basically all of our favorite video games. And there's a lot of people that would want to play video games that just can't. And I really want to try to change that. There's things like epilepsy, color blindness, audio and visual triggers, and mobility issues that prevent people from playing video games, and it makes them miss these incredible storylines. There's a lot of games that have very good storylines and very good stories to tell and very good like technology behind them that should be people should be able to experience this. And most video game companies never, they just tack it on kind of for virtue signaling at the end. They don't really give a shit about these people with accessibility issues. They just say they do so they can get some brownie points and tack it on at the end. No, like very few games are being developed with accessibility in mind, and almost no studios that I know of, at least AAA studios, uh, have the people actually making the games in mind either. They don't give a shit about their employees. They don't care. They're just paying them. And they think that the developer should be happy just getting paid. And what's going on is they're forcing these developers to work on projects that they don't give a shit about just so that they can survive. And they're not even paying them adequately at a lot of the times. Like a good example is how a lot of people are being fired from the game industry, um, fired or laid off, and then they're just being rehired for less money as private contractors, and they're not getting the benefits, the 401k, they're not getting any of the stuff that a normal employee would get, and they're on a job to job basis, not just to save money and for the publishers, but it's a huge tax avoidance issue as well. They're pushing that burden of insurance and taxes, more taxes, and healthcare and retirement and all that stuff that is traditionally upheld by the the industry, the employer, is being now pushed off onto the employee. Um, it's happening all over the industry, but that's a whole nother video. Uh, so I want to make content about that sort of thing, how we can help the devs, how the devs can help us, and basically give a big giant middle finger to the corporatization of video games. Like that's what I want this channel to be about. How helping consumers and helping game devs. Um, my goal is to highlight underrepresented topics, you know, working conditions, accessibility features, and my goal is to help keep you informed about what's really happening behind the scenes and in your favorite video games. I want to dive into topics that don't always get the attention they deserve. Legal issues are a part of that. Yes, I will. I'm not going to stop doing legal content always. But yeah, legal issues are going to be a part of that. Because those do affect you as somebody who enjoys video games. Now, what you might be wondering is why I'm making this change. It's pretty simple. I believe there's more to gaming than just discussing the latest releases or dissecting legal disputes. Um, I'm kind of known for my somewhat unbiased takes and fairness. And I'm very proud of that, and I kind of want to bring that into more of a true journalistic sense. There's a lot of games journalists out there that, in my opinion, just kind of find the newest topic, report on it at the surface level, and then move on. And they're kind of trend chase. And I want to be the opposite of that. I want to try to affect actual positive change in our community. And sure, legal issues will still come up when they're relevant, but they're not going to be the main focus anymore. And neither is Dark and Darker. I don't want to pigeonhole myself into just the legal Dark and Darker dude. Um, I make content whenever I want to make it, however I want to make it, and at what I want to make it about. And it's not just Dark and Darker that I, want to make content about. I don't think that's fair to me. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to anybody because, I'm not going to be the best person to give you advice on how to play the game when there's much more skilled content creators out there that can fill that role. I don't want to make non-genuine content. I want this channel to be a place where we can have meaningful conversations about how games are made, the challenges developers face, and the ways we can push for a fairer industry as a whole, for both the people making the games and the people playing them, not the investors and shareholders. I want to make it more equitable for the two important groups, which is the consumer and the worker. The people at the top who are just donate, like basically the money bags, shouldn't be making decisions, and they shouldn't impact the outcome of the video game. The people doing the labor and that actually have the passion for the project should be the ones being rewarded, and the consumer should feel comfortable with what they're purchasing. The game industry is at a pivotal point right now where consumers are more aware than ever of how games are being made and the impacts that they have. But there's so much that people just aren't saying because either they don't know about it, they don't have the time, or they're kind of afraid because they work in the industry for one of these publishers or studios. So a lot of stuff just kind of gets left unsaid. And I don't really care if I'm the one who kind of takes the heat for saying some of this stuff, because we could do a lot more to shed light on these topics, especially things like accessibility and workers' rights and labor. Not because we want a virtue signal or look good. It does make me feel better to help people. So there's a selfish reason for that. But every player should have a way to enjoy video games. Everybody who wants to play video games should be able to. We as a community can do more to address these issues, things like accessibility and fair treatment of the developers, and fair treatment of the consumers with as far as like pricing goes and stuff like that. And I know that a lot is being said, but a lot of times it's just kind of glossed over, and people only go into it at surface value, or they get their clicks and their views and then they move on, right? And nobody from the industry really talks about the problems with modern development cycles and the labor issues that come along with that. Games are being made to be more expensive and cost more money to drive down competition from indies and like indies, solo devs, small teams, and double A publishers and stuff like that. The triple A publishers and the big name studios are basically intentionally crushing the market, making it more expensive so that the barrier of entry is way harder to meet. And stuff like that never gets talked about. And how does that affect the worker? And even it goes as far as to affect our state and local taxes and country taxes. So some of that stuff can be kind of boring, but I want to try to make it exciting and talk about it anyway. This deserves to be talked about, and the developers deserve fair treatment, and the consumers deserve fair treatment as well. These are the people either spending their time and investing their passions into creating stuff for the consumer that we love, and the consumers are the ones giving their money for that product or service. And lately it just feels like that's not happening enough. We're giving our money based on hype and expectation, and those expectations and that hype is never met. Like, I can't remember a game other than like Baldur's Gate 3 that has actually met and delivered on the hype or exceeded it without also filling a game with DLC or pay to win or microtransactions and stuff like that. Like, it's really the only game in the past like 10 years that's been put out by a decently large studio that was done correctly, in my opinion, and without any kind of real intention of screwing over the consumer. I want to, I want to make games like Baldur's Gate 3. I want to make games not in the same style, but I want to make games. I want to develop games how they developed that game, the right way, the old school way. With it's just a bunch of friends who got together, funded their own studio, and bootstrapped their own game because they were excited to tell their story in the form of a video game. I want to do that. I don't want to just start a company that milks consumers endlessly to try to get their money. So that's kind of my mission, my goal right now. I want to help consumers and help game devs and the community as a whole. Um, I want to empower you guys, the consumer, with knowledge and advocate for positive change for you in the video game industry and exactly get, I want people to get what they fucking pay for. I'm sick of not getting what I pay for, and that's kind of what I want to highlight in this channel. And one of the ways I'm doing that, and one of the ways I want to affect positive change, is by making my own video game studio that has these core values in mind. So I'm super excited to announce or introduce you to something that I've been working on behind the scenes, and it's a game development studio called Trillium Games. So Trillium Games is not going to be your typical game studio. Our main goal is equity, but not equity in the way you might think. We're not focusing on equity for investors or shareholders or publishers. What I mean by equity is I'm talking about equity and fair treatment for the workers and the consumers, which is exactly why we're building this studio as a worker-owned development studio, founded on democratic principles. So what I mean by that is we have a system of bylaws where the workers have a real voice in how the company is run, as well as who is in charge and the leadership, and how the money that we get is spent. So essentially, if you become a full member, you have equal vote with anybody else any other member of the studio. If you're a full member, that means that you basically have a share of the company and you have a 1-to-1 equal vote. You get a vote on things like who the board of directors are, who is in charge. There's only, right now it's small. There's only like 3 of us, but possibly more. I'm interviewing somebody on Sunday. So there's more people coming in, and more people are seeing the vision and kind of getting the idea of what I want to do with this studio. And I truly want consumers and employees to be in charge of their own futures. So it's basically a game development cooperative. So it's teams working together, kind of in an old school way. It's a small team with very little funding, at least for now, and we all have a say in how development goes. And so does the consumer. If the consumer doesn't like something, we test it, and we, make changes based on the feedback from that testing. And that's kind of how we're developing the studio. We want to have the consumer voice, our employees' voices, and like everybody whose voice is involved, employees, consumers, everybody. We want it to be heard, but most of all, we want it to be implemented. Build things from the ground up the way that you would build them before you needed to have a bunch of, like, nowadays you need a bunch of marketing material. You haven't written a single line of code, yet you're making skins, and you have marketing material, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of marketing material, and uh, microtransaction skins and stuff like that before you've even finished your level design. We don't want to do that anymore. Like, we don't want to do that. We want to start from the ground up, uh, with accessibility in mind, with employees in mind. We don't want things to be done 3 or 4 times and half-ass it every time. We want things to be done right the first time, and we want to give consumers a product that actually functions at a reasonable price and is feature complete on release. You know, like that's what we grew up with. You know, Diablo 1 didn't need 18,000 patches when it came out. It wasn't even online. There was no multiplayer until they did couch co-op. So with, like, I think it was PlayStation. We can't keep making video games like we do now. And we've already used a better way. So we can kind of go back to those old school principles while modernizing them and upgrading them and enforcing them through the structure of our studio. Um, you know, because our motto is that unhappy devs make shit games. You know, if the devs aren't happy, the consumers aren't going to be happy. You know, when shit, and now, I mean, I hate to say it, but shit games have kind of become the new norm. Consumers are suffering. They're paying for half-finished projects. They're giving $60 to go into early access for a game that's not going to be released in 4 years. And people are like, I'm kind of going to say it, but Ashes of Creation, you know, they're selling packs for $500 and the game's not even ready. They have so much tech debt, they're not probably never going to finish that fucking game. And they've sold $500 packs. Like, that shit's unreal, and it's so dumb, and it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be charging money until you have something that works and functions. If you have to get funding, get it elsewhere. Either provide it yourself or get it elsewhere. Don't scam the customers out of money and give them a half-finished product, based on false promises. You know, it's turning into game development's turning into a get-rich-quick scheme or a pyramid scheme really quickly, and it's very sad, and it's terrible that this is happening to a genre, or you know, something that we're passionate about. Shit games are becoming the new norms, and consumers are suffering because of it, which is why we believe that prioritizing the well-being of our developers and focusing on delivering games that players can actually enjoy is how we can create something special. Another core part of our mission at Trillium Games is making sure that our games are accessible. I've been talking about accessibility all the time, and the reason for that is me and Mrs. Wigglies. You know, we have audio and visual triggers, and I have a little bit of hearing problems, and she has audio visual triggers, and she can't play a lot of video games. We can't play a lot of video games together. I wanted to try to get her to play Dark and Darker together. She couldn't. There's too many flashing lights and audio triggers. And that happens to about 90% of the games that we play. We can't play like any games with a lot of action, because action usually means audio and visual effects. So we want to set a new standard for accessibility features. Audio visual triggers, color blindness, mobility issues, whatever the accessibility issue is that the player has, we want to provide a way to overcome that hurdle and have it be built into the game, not just tacked on at the end, you know. And to ensure this, we'll be working closely with accessibility advocates and gamers with, you know, accessibility issues and, you know, specific needs, to ensure that our games can be enjoyed by as many people as possible. And we don't want to do it as an afterthought, just tacked on at the end to make us look like we actually give a shit, or, you know, pass some kind of certification so we get that cool little look how woke we are, or look how nice we are certification logo on their webpage or their packaging. To us, it's more of a fundamental part of the design process that is actually built into the core systems of everything we make. People with issues like epilepsy deserve more than a stupid fucking warning in the splash screen. They deserve to be able to actually play the fucking games that they buy. And in 90% of the cases right now, that's all we get is a big warning that says, hey, if you're epileptic, just don't play this. Like that's, or like, please don't sue us. Here's our anti-sue warning. It's not enough. It's just not. It's not enough. And before I kind of get heated about this, I just have so much trouble finding games that me and Miss Wigglies could actually play uh, without something happening. So we're building our first game, and we're using those design principles and business principles to do that. We've already started. It's an ongoing process that's been in the works for over a year now. And our first game is called Shadows Below. It's a third-person action combat PvEvP Dungeon Crawler. It's a mouthful. So basically, it's a dungeon crawler with their third-person perspective with action combat. It's set in a post-apocalyptic medieval fantasy world with a rich history and lore. I've written 2 books, and I've written two books that made it to the top 1,000 on all of Kindle, all of Amazon, and all of Audible. So I've written 2 books that have breached the top 1,000, and we want it to be kind of lore heavy, and we're building it's a badass world. It's really a world that you can explore, go explore dangerous environments, craft useful items, and prepare yourself for whatever lurks in the shadows. That includes other players. The game isn't just about action combat. It's not, we want that power fantasy. We want those, we want that moment like in Space Marines 2 or Helldivers. So like Helldivers 2 or Space Marines 2, where you're just wading through, you're kind of, because that's kind of a dungeon environment, but you're in the dungeon and you're just wading through hordes of skeletons or whatever. We want that power fantasy feel, and that like really nice combat, but set in like an action, dungeon crawler. So that power fantasy mixed with a very real PvEvP dungeon crawler. Our main focus is combat and dungeon crawler. The game is more about being well prepared and thinking through like what you would actually need on your adventure and being prepared for that situation. It's about planning, adapting, and outsmarting both the enemies and your environment. But let's get one thing clear. The PvP elements don't mean you'll be competing against other players full time. It's not a competitive PvP game. PvP is more of a threat that players have to like keep in the back of their mind, that they might run into another player, and that player might be hostile. But it doesn't mean that you're competing against them. There's no like competitive PvP, and it's definitely not full time. Like you're going to PvP every time you go into the dungeon, no matter what. It's just that another player might be present when you're in a dungeon. They might be near you when you're doing PvE, when you're messing with your PvE. So you have to be careful. You have to look at what's around you because they can attack you. Our goal is to capture that thrill of being on edge, never quite knowing what's going to come next. We want to do that without forcing you to constantly engage in mechanics and systems that you don't enjoy. So if you're there for the PvE, we don't want you to feel like, oh, this is a PvP game, and I'm trying to PvE in it. No, this is a PvE focused game with PvP, but that PvP is also comes with a lot of risk because there's a lot of reward. If you kill another player, they're basically loot pinatas. But if you're going to essentially ruin that person's day because you want all of their loot, there's going to be, and it's a quick way to get a lot of loot, and that's how you enjoy, you want to test your skills against other players. Sure, go for it. There's just a huge drawback, and I'm not going to tell anybody what the drawback is. I'm going to save that for a different video. But there's realistic systems of avoiding PvP, or preventing it from ruining your experience. And at the same time, those that enjoy PvP should have the freedom to do so as long as they're willing to accept the risks that come with it. But yeah, that's kind of the new direction of the channel. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about my game, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the studio when, but the main focus of the game, or the main focus of the channel, is to provide you guys, the viewers, with knowledge that I think might be important or helpful when either making games, um, or buying games. I want to talk about the game industry as a whole rather than just, legal issues and darker darker. Um, I want to help push the conversation when we talk about things like uh, the prevalence of contract work in the video game market, or the kind of secondhand consequences of all of these layoffs that we've seen. Like, what does the future look like for gaming now that most people are being forced into working as contractors? Um, what does that massive amount of tax avoidance look like for taxpayers? Um, what is that going to do? What are the actual downstream ramifications of all of these issues that happen in the video game industry? Because it doesn't affect just gamers. It affects the people who work in the game industry. It affects the people who purchase games. It affects taxpayers as a whole in various countries. There's all kinds of secondhand consequences for these things that people just don't ever give credit to or don't ever talk about, because a lot of people in the industry are actually abusing these like loopholes and practices to kind of get ahead and deflect their costs onto consumers. Um, I want to showcase, the challenges of trying to build a game development studio and a video game and have a YouTube channel. Um, I want to fight for the gaming landscape. I want to fight for our rights as consumers and the rights of the game devs. Um, and at the end of the day, I want to build a game. I want to build a game studio that is built for the people who actually make the games and the people that play them, not for some fucking investor or some suit that has never even played a video game in his life. Like, fuck that guy. He should have, like, that hypothetical dude should not be anywhere near the development process. Um, and I want to make that happen, and I want to help other people make that happen, and I want to help consumers find companies that are like that, that actually have their best interests in mind and deliver good products. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the new direction. I didn't mean to write and to have an hour long video, but yeah, if you like the idea of where this channel's headed, um, and you want more content like that, and you really do like what we're doing, then like, subscribe. If you want to support the projects that we're doing, the studio and the game, um, check out the Patreon. The link will be down below in the description. Or buy one of these guys. Fume. It genuinely does help. I really enjoy this thing. It never leaves it stays either in my pocket or on my desk. So I 100% stand behind these guys. So that's one way to help, and it'll help you form a better habit. So go to tryfume.com/derpwigglies, or go to our Patreon. But the thing that helps support us the most is actually, um, yes, we need money, and games and dev studios cost money. I have to pay people, um, but the most important thing is, you guys, is liking the video, subscribing, and just generating comments. Let me know what you think, what you want to see, or if you have any topics that you think need to be talked about. Because that's one thing I want to do, is actually take suggestions from the community and talk about and research them and see, and like expose some stuff that really affects us. So if you have an issue that's affecting you, I would love to know about it so that we can actually go through it together. With that said, I'm super excited to share this journey with you guys. I hope you come along with me on the ride. Um, like I said, if you're interested in where we're headed, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any updates. If you want to help support the channel, the game, or the studio, please consider joining our Patreon. Let's make a difference in the gaming industry together. Thank you for watching, guys. Peace.